Hello everyone, and welcome to video number 8 of our PHP developing tutorials. In this video we're going to talk about loops. I've went ahead and removed everything except for our numeric index array, and we're going to start this by using a while loop. And go ahead and say that I don't use the while loop very often in PHP. It's one of the least used in my experience on my PHP, but I'm going to show you how to use it anyway. We're going to create a variable called flag. Let's say it's equal to true. It's a Boolean variable equal to true. We're going to say while flag is equal to true, we're going to echo, just simply say flag is equal to true. Flag is true. Okay. Now if we ran that right exactly like it is right there, we'd end up having an infinite loop, and that's something you want to avoid in programming in most cases. It's very rare that you create an infinite loop or want to create an infinite loop. Most of the time you want to stay away from those. An infinite loop is something that would cause the program to sit in and perform something over and over and over again. It would never break out of it. So as this sits right now, you would never stop iterating through this loop, and it would end up just creating a bunch of echoes of flag is true, and it would actually probably blow up your web server. So you don't want to. It wouldn't blow it up, but it would cause it to, your page would never load completely, and it would never do anything. It would just pretty much just halt. So what we have to do to break out of this is set flag equal to false. This is going to perform something one time, and generally what you would use a while state or while loop for is you would set it to run while something is true, and then while you're running through it you would check, and eventually somewhere in this while loop you would have to make a check with an if statement or something comparable and see if another condition is met, and then break out of this loop by changing that flag variable to false. We're just going to change that flag variable to false right off the bat here. So we're saving that. Let's go to our browser and refresh that, and it says flag is true, and it does it one time, and that's because we're immediately setting the flag variable to false. So what's happening is our flag variable here is true. While that flag is true, we echo this, and then we're changing it to false. This is performed one time. Now we could make it perform more than one time. We could create a count variable here and set it equal to 0, and then we'll use an if statement. If our count is greater than 5, then we set our flag to false. Okay. Now immediately after that, we want to make sure that we increment our count variable so that it causes our loop to eventually break out of the loop and eventually end. If we don't increment that count variable here, then we will end up with a loop that doesn't end, another infinite loop. So let's see what that produces. So we actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 true statements here. And we can, to give you a little bit better of idea of what we're doing here, let's say count is count, and then flag is that. So let's save that and refresh that. So on our count, we set our count 0 starting out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It gets to the 6. Now we're incrementing to the 6 on that last loop, and then we're coming back up here, and flag is still true, so we're echoing it out, and then we're checking to see if the count is greater than 5, which it is, and then we're setting the flag to false. So that's how a while statement works. Another loop that I rarely use, but I want to show how to use it, is a do while loop. So we're going to do something while a condition is being met. And then you may ask, what's different about this when compared to the while statement? The while statement doesn't perform the code block within it if a condition is not met. The do while performs the code block and then checks the condition. So it'll always run the statements, or the group of statements that you're putting into the loop, at least one time. It'll always run at least once. So let's say we echo the count here. Let's echo count. Let's see. Count is count, and flag is, and then we echo flag. Okay, so if you notice though, we are going to end up with this doing an infinite loop. So we're going to check to see if the count, if count is greater than 5 again. Let's do 9 this time. Then we're going to set the flag equal to false. And we're going to increment our count Now let's run that and see what happens. Let's to pretty that up a little bit. Let's add a line break, HTML line break at the end. So you can see the count increments through the loop. It does something actually 11 times because it does it one time and increments, then checks the flag and does it again, increments. So we're not changing the count variable. We're not changing the flag until count is greater than 9. Okay. Right here's where the count is 9. It's not greater than 9. We're not stopping until we get to the counts greater than 9, which is 10. So it's important to note that since this is a 0-based count and we're waiting for this to get over 10, we're actually iterating through this 11 times. So this brings up another problem, and that's called by off by 1 errors. And sometimes you'll think that you're iterating a certain number of times and you're actually iterating either one more or one less than what you are supposed to be. So be careful with those and make sure that you're iterating the right number of times. So the important thing to remember between the do and the do while, the while and the do while loops, is that the do while will always execute the statements in between the braces at least one time. It does this and then it checks to see if a condition is met. The while statement checks the condition first. So now we get into the two loops that I do use quite often, and that's the for loop. And let's get rid of this count variable. I don't need it. Do not need it. So we got the for loop, and I'm going to just write the for loop real quick and then tell you what it does. So in the last loop, we incremented our count variable at the end of the loop. In this type of loop, you increment the variable within the conditions or in the for statement itself. So we have a index variable that we're setting to 0. We're checking in each iteration of the loop to see if that variable is less than the count of our array, which is the length of this array. Then we're incrementing the index variable by 1. So in this, let's go ahead and let's just echo index. Let's say I equals I, just to show what the I is at. Now this is going to go through 4 times because it starts at 0, and we're going till as long as I is less than the count of array. And since array has a length, this array ARR has a length of 4, since it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's got 4 values in that array. The length of this is 4, so while I is less than 4, we do what's in the for loop, and then we increment our I. So we're starting out with a 0 index. This is going to go till I is equal to, or till I is 3, and then it's going to break out of the loop. So it's going to execute 4 times. So let's check that and see how it looks. Just to clarify this a little bit more, I keep forgetting to put in my break. 0, 1, 2, 3. But this is 4 iterations, and it goes from 0 to 3. So if you want to see it do it more times, let's say we could say while I is less than 10. That would do it 10 times because we're starting out with a 0 index. Okay, so just to also something that we can do something with that array. We could say echo array. Let's see. Let's do this. Array is, and then we can actually say now what we get here, and again forgetting the break at the end. Okay, so now we echo the values in our array. We're iterating through the array with our index. This is our index value. It's a 0 index array, so we're starting with 0. The first iteration that we go through this loop, I is equal to 0, so it says the array index of 0 is echoed here, which is orange. And it goes through orange through green. We could do the same thing with a for each loop by using for each, and then we give the array and say as, let's just say color. And then we're going to echo, let's echo the colors. just simply the color. And we're also going to, before I forget, add a break to it. So now we set that and refresh, and we're listing all the colors in that array. So what this does is the for each array, or the for each loop, gets the array that we have here in AR. It loops through the elements inside that array, and it names them with the variable of color. We're using, this is like the new variable that's created for each one of these items. The word color, the variable color, is how we reference these values in each iteration of the loop. So we're echoing the color for each one of these array items as color. Echo the color, and we get our list of items in our array. And that's all we're going to cover for loops at the moment. And this may seem kind of strange, and it may not make any sense yet as far as how all these things are going to help you write a website. But trust me, it's all going to come together. We're going to do a few more things, and I'll show you how they can be useful, and you'll notice these things start to be useful in different ways. And it's kind of hard to explain that. It's hard to explain how to do those things that we're going to explain later without explaining how these basic elements work. And these are the basic elements of PHP programming. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and check out the next video. It's going to be on functions. Please subscribe.